super hot. Don't hold it too close. So, as we test this out, allow me to welcome you to tonight's educational forum that is being hosted by the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. My name is Bill Burek. I'm on my third year, I think, as a Chamber board member. There's a whole bunch of other board members over here with their name tags on because they're super responsible, except for Debbie. So, everybody knows Debbie. So, anyway, super interesting situation we find ourselves in. It's been hard on the community. You take the word tax, and I think it just immediately makes people pause and wonder where are we going with the word tax. And I got to believe that. And I guess as I start discussing this, I'm probably going to wander back and forth a little bit before we let these guys hold the mic. We've got folks on the Chamber of Commerce board that are very much in favor of the sales tax, and we've got folks on the board that are very much not. So a real interesting situation there just for the Chamber of Commerce board to find itself in. So the goal becomes just education. Can we help folks know a little bit more about the mechanics of it, the need for it? We're going to give Mayor Ron Marini an opportunity to talk about the need for it. He's got all sorts of interesting stuff over there on the table. I think that Tom's going to talk about the other side, and Adam's just going to have answers to every question that I have. So, because I have a lot of questions just about the logistics about how you administer something like this, and that's going to be one of the things that I approach. If anybody else has a question and wants to hold this incredibly hot mic, just raise your hand here in a little while after we get through some opening statements, and we'll get the mic to you. We do ask that even though we're in a middle school gym, we're going to act like grown-ups. And on that note, we certainly appreciate Ontario Middle School and District Superintendent Nikki Albasu for allowing us to use the gym. What a nice, shiny spot. So certainly appreciate that. So interesting discussion here tonight, maybe learn a little bit more. I think ballots are coming out in a couple of days. I'm going to look at you every time I have a question, John, that's not for Adam. John says they're coming out at the end of the week. So we're coming to decision time, a very polarizing decision here in Ontario. And let's learn a little bit more about it tonight here at Ontario Middle School's gymnasium. So I'm going to hand the mic to Mayor Ron. Are you ready?
Well, welcome, community. I want to start off by saying that no matter how this tax goes down, whether you're pro 1% or anti 1%, the community really has been given an opportunity to really discuss the pros and the antis. Not only on Facebook, on the web, in the community, talking with our neighbors, and we're having an opportunity to really discuss all of the reasons why on one side or why on the other. I happen to think, as mayor of this community, that I have a responsibility, as well as the city council, to do what is best for the community, And what is best, we feel, for the community was to actually impose this 1% tax. We represent every single person in our community. We represent 11,000 people. Now, with that said, if you ask each one of those 11,000 people about this subject, you will probably have more than yes or no, because it is a very difficult, you might say, decision that we made, and it's difficult in our community because we made it. This has been on the docket as far as I know, since 2004. In 2004, this issue came up, and I have a feeling that that particular council started to see the writing on the wall. The community came out substantially against the tax. And I understand that. But a lot has happened since 2004 and today. What has happened is we have attempted, as a council, to live within our means. To do that, if you go back, the library was under city jurisdiction, let's say. All right? That turned into a library district. All right? So we didn't have that responsibility anymore. And we did not have, of course, the expense of the library itself. And one of the reasons for that was the city was just starting to have a few problems with finance. As time went on, we took a look at our 911 center. Our 911 center in Ontario was very, very beneficial for our community. Because having that center located within the confines of the City Hall gave us that little added advantage of when a call came in and our police or fire were in the building, they can actually communicate right there, instantly, to find out exactly what is going on the ground. But we thought that with the savings of a couple $100,000 and the fact that in dispatch centers they do follow certain procedures, that we would be as safe, you might say, with the calls coming in to the dispatch center. And I think the 911 center now is doing a heck of a job for our community and giving us very good service. So we did that for a savings. Even so, we're a little apprehensive as to the results. As time then went on with our community, we closed the golf course. Now, we closed the golf course because it wasn't financially liable or viable for our community. We did that to save money. Each one of these were done to save money so that we can take those monies and put it into critical operations at City Hall. And then we move on and we see, of course, the Aquatic Center. One of the most important parts of our community close because of years and years of incorrect maintenance going on with the Aquatic Center, the expense, the fact that that center itself, the way it was built, had a roof that was incapable of releasing the moisture out of the building, but kept it in the building, which deteriorated all of that equipment over a period of time. We could not keep up with the expense of maintaining it. So we closed it. Those savings also went into the critical positions that we had in our city. And as we went along, even in our police department, if you think about it, We have 22 sworn officers right now. We do not have specified detectives. Now think about going out onto a call, arresting a person, and then having to do all of that detective work yourself as a police officer to follow through with that. And then while you're doing the detective work, all of a sudden receiving another call for service. What do? Do you continue the detective work, or do you respond to that call for service? Our police officers right now are fatigued being reactive rather than proactive. It's a problem. It's a problem because of the number of calls that we receive for service. We've received over 11,000 calls for services last year. We also see our violent crimes in the community at a level that I don't think any of us want to have. We just had a stabbing yesterday. A few months back, we had 3 shootings, a couple stabbings in a very short period of time. On my block, up the street, we had an attempted rape. At my own home, we had the state police, the sheriff's department, and the police department running after an individual. Now, he went to jail. But take a look at all that time that our police officer then had to take to do all of those reports and then show up at court. And then all of that time taken there, it reduces the number of officers that we have on the street. There's been a lot of talk about PERS. We are close to $10 million in debt because of PERS. That's a lot of money for this community. If we just took that 1% and applied it towards PERS and paid that down, maybe we would have enough money left from then on forward to actually start servicing what we need in our city, whether it be police, fire, streets. We have I guess it's called an operational deficit of about $700,000. We have a city streets deficit of about $600,000. We are going to be getting help from the state moving forward, but we still have a lot of, you might say, challenges moving our city forward. Without the 1%, do you think that we can really improve the quality of our safety in our community or the quality of life in our community? With that, I'll pass it back to our chamber.
Thanks, Ron. So we'll have time for questions here in a little bit, but before we do that, we'll give Tom Butler an opportunity to say a handful of things. Did I disturb you? You look like I surprised you a little bit there.
No.
I know you're not afraid of a mic.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Ontario Chamber for hosting this forum this evening. Thank you, Mayor, for the articulate and eloquent discussion of the 1% and the state of our community. I think that concerns us all. We're concerned about our safety. We're concerned about our fire department. We're absolutely concerned about the condition of our streets. Now, I'm sorry, the last time I spoke publicly, I spoke to the Morticians Society for the State of Oregon. This is a little bit livelier group, but not by much. I'm a 40-plus year member of the Chamber of Commerce. Our family has been here for nearly 100 years in this valley, and we love it here. I was born and raised in Ontario and Vail, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of those folks who are concerned about raising a new tax for all folks who come to Ontario to shop. And so with that, I want to just let you know how I got involved in this process. I'm a member of an organization, I'm on the board of an organization called the Taxpayers Association of Oregon. The two principles that the Taxpayers Association of Oregon works under are, number one, there should be no additional new taxes without a vote of the people. And that's at all levels of government, whether it's city, county, or even within the state. We strive very actively to make sure that voters have an opportunity to say yes or no when a new tax is proposed. And of course, that didn't happen in Ontario. The new tax went in, was adopted by the City Council without a vote of the people. And that is in opposition to the Taxpayer Association of Oregon basic tenet. Number two, and I must say that the Taxpayer Association of Oregon is a nonpartisan organization. We just seek after some very basic and conservative ideals. Number two is that we want accountability for the money that is being raised by the tax, for the benefit of the community, whether it's a county or city or even within the state. I just called your attention that last year we implemented a $25 business fee tax on every business in this community, except the nonprofit organizations and except certain other organizations. I was invited by the mayor to come and form a committee of one to try and help flesh out that issue. And I want you to know that I turned it down because I think it should have been a committee of about 50 people. There were lots of problems with it. I went to the city council, legal counsel for the city, and asked where on earth this had come from, because it had so many holes in it that it was very difficult to swallow. It didn't seem possible to me that we were going to be charging this $25 tax to every organization that was doing business in the city of Ontario. And finally, when we got some of those items fleshed out, I found out that this was based upon a similar business fee tax that was proposed in Bend, Oregon. And I said, well, what did Bend, Oregon do with it? How did they try and tax the railroad? How did they try and tax UPS? How did they try and tax those folks who are doing business in Bend, Oregon? They're just transitory, dropping off loads of freight and those kinds of things. He said, well, they didn't address that because they never implemented it. So in other words, the second tenet of the Taxpayer Association of Oregon is to be responsible with what happens. Now, folks, we don't know what happened to the $25. I was told certain things would happen in our police department, certain things would happen in our fire department, and the mayor promised me that what was going to happen was that we were going to have a complete business directory of every person that was doing business and every business in Ontario, and a great deal more about them would be learned. It's the second year of that tax, and I've never seen item one. I asked a member of the council just a few moments ago. He said, well, check with the city manager. He'll know what happened to the money. Okay, that's how I got involved in this. Now let me just walk through a couple of things that I'd like you to consider, and I don't know how much time you want for questions, but let me walk through at least 5 items that I'd like to propose to you. First of all, government does a lousy job of estimating for you and I what it's going to cost you and I to implement these kinds of things. I've understood that the City Council is offering up to $1,000 for some businesses to go ahead and implement this tax collection. By the way, the Oregon Society of CPAs is running a course, I think they'll run it again this fall, for anyone who would like to implement the sales tax in their community at a cost to the business owner of about $250. That's held in Pendleton, incidentally, if you'd like to go. Take the day off, drive up to Pendleton, spend the day in a program there where your accountant will learn how to do this, and then afterwards, you are faced with the cost of implementing, whether it's the new cash registers, whether it's the training of your employees, or whatever it is. But I would go back to my basic principle, and that is the tenet that government does a lousy job of determining what it's going to cost you and I to implement that. In that same vein, government does a lousy job of telling us what it's going to cost government to implement a whole new sales tax department for the City of Ontario. If you think you can get it done for less than the cost of an employee with all of their benefits and have no place for them to be, then that's a lousy budgeting job. And it's going to cost you many times more than what's been estimated. So first of all is the cost, whether it be to you and I as taxpayers and collectors for this new tax, or whether it be for the maintenance and establishment and setup and hiring and operation and HR and everything else for a new department in the city. Second item I'd like to bring up. I don't know about your business. I have a very small business now. And I've talked to other folks who have small businesses. Let's say you make $100,000. And the cost of the city's contractor said, well, it's only going to cost you 5%, maybe 3, maybe 10, but 5% of your sales. That's all it's going to cost you. All right? 5% of $100,000, I'm going to lose $5,000 in business. But wait a minute, that is not my bottom line. That's not my net income. My net income, after I pay my employees, which I may not be able to afford anymore, after I pay my rent, after I pay my property taxes and my utilities, my net income is only $20,000. That's a 20% return. That's not bad. I see some of you shaking your hands. Yeah, I'd stand for 20% of the gross and get by. Wait a minute, what just happened? I just dropped $5,000 off the top, and I dropped $5,000 minimum off the bottom, and that's not 5%, that's 25% of my $20,000. Again, it's not hurting you. And I would say this, if I offered any member of the City Council, or the city manager, or anyone else in this audience an opportunity to forego 25% of what you presently take home and live on, you'd march out of the room upset. And that's what I say. It's a matter of math. It's only going to cost 5% of your sales, but it'll be much higher when you look at your bottom line. Much greater cost. But that's 25% on a business that does $100,000 and nets 20. Okay. Number 3. Voters. Folks, I understand that there's a bunch of folks that are coming to the City Council and asking for some kind of exemptions. And there's even talk of a statewide exemption of any tax on food sales. 2 communities in the state of Oregon charge a sales tax. 2 communities. Both of them are destination resorts. I know personally one of the folks that collects 65% of the general fund budget for Yachats, Oregon. the number of, the amount of dollars collected through that sales tax on prepared meals and yachts, the amount of dollars has gone up, but the amount of meals served, the number of meals served has dropped precipitously since the implementation of that tax. The other destination community is Ashland. You want to put together a Shakespearean festival and make this a destination? I think that's a great idea. But we are not, even with the Four Rivers Cultural Center, a destination community. And until we are, there's no reason to think that somebody is going to rush to Ontario to pay this sales tax for us. Okay, those exemptions that I offered just a moment ago, I don't know who all they are. I don't know the discussions that are ongoing from city councilman to city councilman at this particular point. But I would say this, and caveat emptor, be careful, because the same folks that are now garnering exemptions from this tax can be re-included in this tax with a simple majority vote of the council. You need 4 people to say, I don't like the way they comb their hair. Their exemption is gone. So a simple majority, and if you think that real estate sales are exempt today or that car sales are exempt tomorrow, comb your hair wrong, and you may pick up that tax, and you say, well, I don't pay it, but I'm willing to take a 5% cut in the number of sales that I would have. Okay, so be careful. Be careful, because it only takes, after the implementation of the tax, it only takes a simple majority to reverse the whole situation. And medical fees, prescriptions, food, everything is subject to the tax. Simple majority. And if you have total confidence, 100% confidence, in every member of the city council voting with you and saying, yes, that's the way we will always vote. And remember, there's at least one city councilor that's seated presently that ran on no sales tax. Changed his mind. Finally, I just offer up some things, and the mayor really gave a great segue for that. I just offer up some things. We love our policemen. We want to have safety, public safety in our community. I wish that wasn't the first thing that was offered up in this process. Either vote for the tax or we'll start firing cops. I wish that the policemen and firemen and the other firefighters and other folks who are providing our public safety weren't the first ones to be caught. So let me just suggest to you that the mayor said a library district was formed. You know what kind of a district they formed across the river? They formed a recreation district. Have we done that? Have we explored it thoroughly? Do we really need a recreation district, or do we not need an aquatic center? The people ought to be able to be given the opportunity to vote for special districts. So that and incidentally, I just finished part of the library budget this past week, and the library is doing fine without the City of Ontario's tax base. Ontario didn't reduce their tax base. They just increased the amount of money that they were spending previously, and they're using it now in general funds as opposed to using it for the library. So, the mayor's offered it up, and I suggest to you that we could have some special districts in Ontario, and we could do so very effectively. Now, who's going to form a recreation district? I'm not. I don't go golfing. I used to use the aquatic center. We were charter members of the aquatic center. Don't anymore, obviously. I don't know that I'm going to go into the slip and slide park, but you know, that's fine too. But what I'm saying is that if we want to maintain the kinds of programs that we want for our families and in our community, we may have to have the city council make some very hard decisions. And they might have to work under a different candle at night to figure out how to get this job done. But it can be done. I mentioned to a councilman a few moments ago, when the issue of the recreation came up, well, we need that for our kids, the soccer programs, and the other T-ball, and those other kinds of things. He said, talked to another community member, and they said, well, I pay $350 for the T-shirts for the kids to advertise my business on the back of them. My son-in-law is paying $1,500 in his community to have people run around with aesthetic dentistry on the back of their T-shirts. Now, we may not be able to afford $1,500 in Ontario, but I don't know how long it's been since we've looked at having business pick up a greater portion of the cost of our recreational programs. But, that said, we could then go ahead and have a recreational district considered. Okay, well, in that regard, let me suggest to you that there is a very, very good solution, and it's going to take some gray cells from the council. And that is, folks, it's time for us to consider doing what we're comparing ourselves to Vail and Nissa and LeGrand and Pendleton. It's time for us to consider ourselves compared to those communities who lost their O&C funds, their forest funds, and they had very low tax bases compared to Malheur County, compared to Ontario, compared to Vail and Nissa even. They lost those funds. What did they do? The first thing they did was they went to the community and said, folks, not only do we not have the mill jobs that we had before, but we have an opportunity now to go ahead and establish a serial levy for the police, the sheriff, the firefighters. And you know what? In those communities that are subject to the O&C funds, where they've lost those funds, in every community, when the councils have come forward and the county commissioners have come forward, in every one of those communities, they've put forward their vote for yes, they will give serial levies. Those are 5-year property tax levies is what they are. We're still paying it as property tax owners. We're still going to have that levy, but we are not going to form a new department within the City of Ontario. We're going to make our best case for the taxes and funds that are needed for recreation and or police and or fire and or any other of the necessities that the City Councils offer. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic back to the Chamber. Thank you.
So I sit and listen to both sides, and I think, holy cow, we're really lucky to have people that are so passionate about something willing to stand up and talk. And I know that, Ron, you've given this talk a lot of times, but it's obvious that you believe in it. I mean, it's something that, you know, is coming from your heart in that respect. And Tom, you did a great job as well. It's really, you know, one of the things that I think a lot of folks know is that public speaking's hard. And these guys sit up here and did a really good job. And, you know, I was thinking, you know, how crazy it would be to have state police in my yard. And then I was also thinking that the best ice cream cone I ever had was in Hots. So you guys were taking me, I was a pendulum of emotion listening to both of you. So, and you mentioned Ashland as well. I tell you what, being a redneck from Vail, Oregon, going there my senior year for the Shakespeare Festival was a real eye-opener too. So, not everybody wears blue jeans in this world, or pants. So, there's a lot going on out there. So, I have a whole raft of logistical questions about how you administer something like this, but I think this is probably a really good opportunity to give the folks here in attendance an opportunity. Does anybody have any questions? And do you want me to bring you I can bring you this mic if you'd like. And questions only. If you want to pontificate, you should probably be one of the chairs up here.
Well, I want to pose a question, but in a statement, my family came here in 1935. I lived here all my life. Ontario used to be a great place to come to. Had a lot of attractions. And over the years, I've seen it slide downward. I listened to the gentleman here talk about fees and so forth. What I'm concerned about is that the people that live here in Ontario are going to have to end up paying the total bill. It doesn't matter how you cut it. If you have a recreation fee, who's going to pay for it? the citizen of Ontario is going to pay for it. My concern is, I don't want to see additional fees added to the people who live here, particularly when the people who are primarily using the things that the Ontario area has generated as an attraction are getting to use our streets, our police, our community, basically almost, I would say, free of charge. Now, it comes around to how we're going to take care of Ontario. I think the people who are using Ontario, whether you live here, whether you live outside of Ontario, whether you live across the river, should help us maintain the lifestyle and the livability that we enjoy here. If we don't do something as far as how we're going to pay for it, somebody says, well, we can raise recreation fees. Who's paying for it? You and I are paying for it. Recreation fees, recreation districts don't go away. They're a taxing body. The library district is a taxing body. The Vector district is a taxing body. We also put in a levy to keep the experiment station open. Who's paying for it? You and I are paying for it, and it isn't going to go away. So the only other option that I can see, and having been on the budget committee here for over 13 years, I've seen some degradation coming. We've done our best during those times to offset those expenses, but there comes a time when you can't keep up. So what do? We just implemented a $9 or an $8 water bill fee. That's $96 a year. Currently, you'd have to spend $9,600 on other items to equate that back to $96 in a year's time.
Gary, this is an amazing run-up to the question that you were going to ask.
Well, I guess my basic question, I have one more and then I'll ask the question. If the city comes back and adds another fee onto the water bill to pay for the sewer, or no, excuse me, the police, that could come up to about $204 per year. You'd have to spend out of your pocket on the sales tax $20,400. You have the choice of what you buy, you have the choice of what you spend. So, going back to this gentleman, what he's saying is the expense and how we're going to operate. I didn't hear you state what you would implement other than more taxes back on the local people as to how you would help to correct this problem in a positive way. Thank you.
The question is, as I understand it, is what needs to be paid for by someone else so that we don't have to pay the tax. Is that what you're saying?
Say that again.
Who needs to pay the tax other than us in order for it to be equitable?
No, I'm saying everybody needs to be paying a fair share. We shouldn't be carrying the whole load for everybody else.
Okay. So who got us into this situation? The folks in Idaho? The folks that come here